Nevtralnost je bila desetletja prevladujoč knjižnični diskurs, pozabljajoč na pomembno vlogo knjižnic in knjižničarjev pri oblikovanju javnega mnenja preko storitev, ki jih te nudijo. Prispevek z naslovom Libraries as Agents of Social Change between Shrinking and Expanding Spaces osvetljuje knjižničarje kot aktivne udeležence v oblikovanju političnega diskurza in knjižničnih zbirk za prihodnje generacije. Saša Madacki, kot vodja projektov pri nemški fundaciji Helfen Leben Stiftung, oblikuje in evalvira poskusne modele učenja v neformalnem izobraževanju. Po izobrazbi je diplomirani komparativist in bibliotekar. Zavzema se za vključevanje knjižnic, arhivov in muzejev v izobraževalne modele. Tukaj bi še rada poudarila, da če ima kdo kakršnokoli vprašanje, lahko napiše v Q&A, lahko pa tudi dvigne rokico in pomoč iz ozadja vas bo spustila v kader, da se boste lahko z gospodom Madackijem pogovarjali. Hi, Mr. Madacki.
Hello, Petra. It's very nice to be there with you. And the standard greeting is hello, Ljubljana. This is Sarajevo calling.
So your presentation will be held in English.
Yes.
And we are actually already very excited to hear your presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Petra, for this introduction. I'm very, very happy to be there because we have been some 25 years ago in the same association in the Union of Yugoslav Library Associations. but this association does not exist anymore. But nevertheless, I'm glad that we are still cooperating in a way that we are really sharing opinions, because we are still the same library market, actually, and the same library space is really for all the former Yugoslav republics is actually the joint and common one. And I will agree with Dr. Žalec that libraries are common goods, and I believe that all of us can really have a benefit with this. What I will speak today is about libraries as agents of social change. The problem with this approach is that libraries for centuries has been seen as the neutral and objective institutions who are the temples of the knowledge, which means that they are very heavily depending on the priests or the librarians in this temple, what should be kept between the sacred walls and what we should give to our users as a high truth they are seeking about. My deep belief is that the library should be and is agora. It's a really public sphere in pure Habermasian terms, where the libraries are really place where the things should be discussed. And the libraries are really, unfortunately today, very silent agents of the social change, but they are really should be seen as a stimulus for the public discussion. Whether or not we are agreeing what is kept between the sacred walls of the library. I will agree with Dr. Žalec about these 8, I would rather say, historical functions of the library. But we can reduce this or make a common denominator about the 4 core tasks which libraries perform. This is to collect, to organize, to disseminate, and to interpret. This interpretative role of the libraries is not very much discussed in the library circles, because we still, at least it was my experience at a lot of library conferences, we are really in love of describing our collections and how many books or non-book materials we have in the collections and how many users. But we barely understood what is our impact on society. So what our patrons are how they are dealing with information they receive, and what they are further on doing with it. We have statistics which are not sufficient, because we know what is going on. I mean, we know how many books we have, how many books is borrowed, and how many patrons are using it, or how many patrons are attending our events in the libraries, but we don't know what is the impact on the society with it, and what is the qualitative dimension of it. So basically, as a place, the library, when you mention the library to the common public, we still think about library space as a dusty storage, not as an active, vivid place where we can really push and move on things. Our collections, even though if they are in open stacks, the problem with those is that we are very conservative, following the universal decimal classification, and then we are having the books there or non-book material, but we never discuss the, let's say, the first thing when we speak about the curating the collections is what is our collection policy, how we are acquiring books. We know that there is no censorship in our legislation, so basically nobody is actually controlling us on what we are offering to the patrons. But my first question is, what about self-censorship? Do we really have self-censorship very, very active and vivid in our society? How librarians are thinking about the acquisition? Will I buy or include in the collection the book with which content I deeply disagree? This is the question. Or if I think that this is not appropriate for our patrons, and who is deciding about appropriateness? Does my political or religious view or any other view or my identitary settlement is really affecting acquisition policy? Who is discussing this between the library communities? So we had this trap for the centuries that we are neutral and objective. Neutrality and objectivity does not exist, because all of us, we are humans. Librarians are humans, and we are not robots. And actually, all of us, we are having our loves, passions, desires, hates, whatever we have in our head, and this affecting acquisition policy. So this is one. To disseminate. When you go to any store or any commercial entity, if you ask for some service and if somebody say it's not available, this means simply that this is not available. When librarian says no, this can mean at least 5 no's. First no is we don't have it in a collection. No, because it's borrowed, it's out of the library. I don't think this is suitable book for you. I will not give it to you because I disagree with this content and I despise the author and the collection. And the 5th no is simply I don't care and I will not work with the user. So basically, we never discuss very openly and frankly the 5 no's that libraries can offer, and then patron goes out of the library in belief that this item is just not available. But not why it is not available, yes or no. So basically, we are also the controlling access to knowledge. I deeply believe that librarians should be keeper of the gateway, and we are those who really have to keep the doors of the libraries open and not preventing access, either in physical or intellectual terms of accessing the collections. And yes, I still believe, as Dr. Žalec also mentioned this, is that that libraries are really common good, and it should be open for any user. We have to say that libraries are, by its deep nature, they are information agencies. So basically, the raison d'etre of the profession of the librarians is we need to fulfill informational goal, to provide answer to specific questions and to stimulate new questions by making users aware of needed information. This is very nice when you read it in theory, but what this means in practice? Are we really open to dialogue? And also, are we qualified for dialogue? And does our library schools teach us how to be open for dialogue and to have critical thinking? This is also the problem. If you see all our library documents that we are really obeying to, like the manifestos and the UNESCO manifesto on school libraries, UNESCO manifesto on public libraries, IFLA statements, I don't know, the Library Bill of Rights in the United States. If you read all those documents, we are full of shoulds, coulds, and woulds. The libraries should promote, should encourage, should collect, should disseminate, should be trusted, and so on and so on. But we never discussed the mode d'emploi of those shoulds, woulds, and coulds. We never discussed this, how to do this. I agree that all those noble statements are really classifying library profession as one of the very open ones and very, very accessible by the humans. But do we really understand what all those shoulds, could, and woulds means in practice? If I have to say that I like, for instance, Article 1 of the Library Bill of Rights says that books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people of the community that library serves. Materials should not be excluded because of the origin, backgrounds, or views of those contributing to their creation. That sounds perfect. Is it really possible that you will see not dominant political discourse accessible in the libraries? Or, for instance, what about the reproductive rights, about the right to abortion? Are those books really available, or we are considering them as an inappropriate content in the libraries? What about the political activism? What about the right, center, and the left parties of the political spectrum? Do we have information about them in our libraries? We are always speaking about the civic responsibility and that our citizens should be encouraged to take participation in political life of the country. Do we really offer those materials, and do we really assisting them in their attainment to be an active political subjects within the country they live? Or libraries, by their nature, they are leftist institutions. With this new approach of treating libraries and education as a consumer, as a good, this consumeristic approach, that is very, very making a harm to the libraries, because the libraries are not consumerist stuff. We are the common good for the enlightenment of all people. Can the ordinary librarian beat up his pride and prejudice and his or her political beliefs and be very open to include wide diversity in the libraries? This is the one of the heaviest issues. I believe that Barbara has a question.
Yes, I do, if I can,
Please.
if I may.
Please.
You mentioned the shoulds, the woulds, the coulds.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. But at the same time, we are talking about two different things. The library as an institution and librarians as the human component of the whole system. Yeah. So, and we have a lecture that's following yours about the ethical codex. So I do feel that I have to ask, what is the institutional role and what is the personal human role of the librarian? And where do they work in sync and where do they go their separate ways? And what should be here the priority? Not the shoulds, the coulds, the woulds that are written on paper, but that can actually be done in reality, not just on paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. So I believe that we cannot speak, my personal opinion, that we cannot speak separately about the library as an institution and librarians, because the library institution will not exist without librarians. So they are constituted part. The most dominant part. So basically the librarians are those who enforcing the public policy and the law in the library as institution. So maybe non-librarians are prescribing what libraries should do. With this, I believe, I'm thinking on the ministries which are in charge of running libraries. So we have the law. In the law, it's written what libraries should do, and those laws are rewritten every 10 or 15 years, but the message is the same. They are always completely in line with the humanist and humanistic values. The problem is that the library institution is composed of the librarians as individuals, and they're joined as a group are managing the institution. So basically, the institution as such has a goal prescribed in the law, but enforcement of the law and the ethical code and all of the stuff are done by the librarians. So basically, library as a place, as a place of social change, is actually speaking about the librarians who are really enacting the possibility to be socially active in order to achieve change. So everything is up to librarians. So maybe something is up to the non-librarians like the ministries. I mean, they are still giving us the budget to do the stuff, but how to implement this budget is still a decision of the librarians. I'm not speaking about the director of libraries, but when I say librarian, I mean all people who are really running the library. So those are not two separate entities. They are constituting the institution. So the group of librarians is becoming an institution. And all of them are giving the contribution. The accounting department, which are non-librarians, really supporting the activities of the library. And the technical maintenance, they are supporting the cleaning, the heating, the lighting of the library. But the librarians are giving the intellectual access to the collections. And this is 90% of the job that should be done. So the political education of librarians and the conflict prevention is one of the most essential courses or the topics to be delivered to librarians, because it's not uncommon that librarians treating themselves as administrative personnel. So I'm buying books, I'm borrowing the books, and I'm having a public event for the kids in the library. The thing is that the librarians as a collective, the group of librarians, they are shaping the institution. Institution cannot shape up the librarians. So this is it. So basically, this is just one very, very heavily linked component. The group of librarians is making the institution. So basically, how would I like to think about libraries and librarians as institution? So basically, let me use a metaphor. Librarians are the astronomers. We are mapping the Milky Way. We are charting the stars and the planet and exoplanets around us and giving the trajectories, giving the path, the pathway. The users are astronauts. They are going out in the outer worlds, collecting the new stuff, bringing the new ideas, then writing the books or just reading them, and then they return us the data, which we include in our repositories. So basically, we are as well as aggregator, but as well as a stimulator of the astronauts to really boldly go where no one has gone before. So this is the mutual dependence between the astronomers and astronauts. So basically, we are the keepers of the gateway. So this is actually the message. Do you have any clarifications needed, Barbara, or this is?
No, thank you.
Okay, and then the one last thing, this is integration of libraries, museums, and archives into the public sphere. So basically, so if you let's say see our current connections, they are a little bit vague, but for instance, in Sarajevo, you have the museum of the historical museum has the permanent collection of the siege of Sarajevo, which is very, very heavy, traumatic collection, which really causes a lot of emotions. Yeah, and museums are also the information agency as well, the heritage institution, as you would like. How are we dealing with the sensitivity of the collections? For instance, I have worked in the library who has a very extensive collection of the personal interviews of the victims of the war and the war rape during the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is accessible only to the researchers with a valid proof for what they will use it. But we still have several interviews where the interviewee has said that he or she would like that to be closed for the public in the next 50 years or the 20 years after they die. Can we really keep up that promise? We are having so much sensitive materials in our collections, the testimonies, the witnesses. How are we dealing with this? Our libraries, archives, and museums are really cooperating to ensure the right to privacy and also to ensure the freedom of expression and freedom of accessing the knowledge. So where is this border? So basically, what about the exclusion of the materials from the libraries? We have a lot of cases during the war about the destruction of library materials because they were not in alignment with the official state policy or dominating political view. We barely discussing those things. In a lot of conferences that I have been for, the censorship was discussed until the 1945. Even the socialism was not examined, and not to mention the recent wars. So if we would like to have a public sphere and we have a sensitive material, we should talk about this and really to ensure that library is a safe place, not necessarily neutral, but a safe where you can access all the materials, even from the traumatic past, where you can see it and verify it from several sources. This is very, very important for the libraries. And then library can become an agora where everybody can ask a question and get an answer to it. So I'm not speaking about only academic collections. It's very easy to be a librarian in a chemistry library. I mean, you just collect the recent research, disseminate it to your researchers, and voila. But what about the humanistic libraries, the social science libraries, who really can have a wide variety of materials with very, very opposing opinions and dissenting opinions? What about this material? So the social science and humanities librarians are barely discussing those things about the sensitivity of the material and what we can cause if we remove something from the collection. Are we making our clients or patrons blind of some facts intentionally or not? Sometimes we are barely classifying the books. I have done an experiment about the holdings of Bosniaka in Library of Congress in the United States, and about 70% of records have very, very serious errors in the records. So it's not only about the physical collection, it's also about the records, the metadata. How are we describing the things? Are we hiding the things behind the wrong records? Or sometimes maybe this is just a mistake. So basically, this is an issue that we have really reconsidered the library from very, very different points of view to really ensure that this role of the library that library has in Habermasian public sphere, and also to extend hermeneutical horizon. This is the fourth function of the library or task that we barely discuss. Usually it's to collect, to organize, to disseminate, but to interpret. We are doing also interpretation. When we make a collection, all the books and the journals and all the non-book materials are in the chain of mutual dependence. They are giving them access to the multiple truths. And as Joseph Glanville said in 1661, to know the truth, it's not to accessing the one, but the many truths that are surrounding them. So basically, the expanding of hermeneutical horizon, this is our task, which I really, really strongly believe. Ljubljana.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Če ima kdo kakšno vprašanje za gospoda Madackega, lahko dvigne rokico ali pa napiše vprašanje v Q&A. Well, there was one question. Actually, do you think our profession is romantic? Because many people think that from outside the libraries think that that is.
I believe it is a romantic profession. I love it so much, but it's also a very responsible profession. And this is also one issue that we barely discussed. There's the social responsibility of librarians. Yes, we are romantic ones, but also we believe that our collections are open to everybody, and that persons who are coming to the library should feel really welcomed. And also the access to all this stuff. I have a lot of questions from my friends who are non-librarians, like, have you read all the books in your library? I usually say no, and I'm not intended to, because I will never do that. I'm just still picking and choosing what I would like to read, and also following the recommendations. The romanticity of the profession really relies in this, what Dr. Žalec also mentioned, the Borgesian vision of the library. But when Borges says that he imagined the paradise should be in the form of the library. This just simply means that we we have to bear in mind that not single library is an island. We are all connected through our different chains and mechanisms of library cooperation, interlibrary loan, and so on and so on. The librarians are like Freemasons. If you know one, you know everyone. Because if you put 15 librarians in the room, you will have connectivity with all the world. So basically, we are having extensive library cooperations, and this is the romantic view of the library. Maybe I don't have something, but I know the guy who has it, and we can obtain it for you. And this is a service of really curing, let's say, the pain that our citizens are having. I still remember that the story about the patrons who don't have money to pay the membership fee. I still speak about, let's say, I was asking my colleagues from the public library, because in Sarajevo at one moment we had a huge Chinese population. I said, according to law, we have to establish Chinese branch of the public library. Everybody was laughing at it, but this was simply the fact. We don't have collections in Roma language, but Romani people are our citizens, and so on and so on. The librarians are really doing this and trying to open up. And this is the romantic view of the profession. And I'm really a romantic person as well. So this is the reason why I choose librarianship to be my primary profession. I'm dealing with education for 20 years. This is my second passion. But the first passion is really this idea of having an access to knowledge free of charge to every citizen. This is something the most romantic that you can say. So, and I divorced because my wife was not librarian.
Thank you for the answer. You were talking also about civic engagement. Which conditions need to be met, for example, in the library for civic engagement? For example, in librarians, in our profession.
So for that, let's say the perfect place are library associations. Because they are the voice of the professionals. So basically, I know that every library association have a lot of committees. We have committee for everything. We have average library association has at least 15 or 20 committees, from collections to automation to computer deployment and so on. So, but the public policy is something that we should think about. How to influence legislators to make law better, and how to fight for higher budget with arguments, not only by the crying that we are having not enough, that salaries are low, that we don't have money enough to buy the books and other stuff for the library, but for the change. So the political activation of librarians is very, very essential and important. A lot of my friends who are librarians saying that they are apolitical. No, if you don't deal with politics, then politics will deal with you. We as library associations have really, really good impetus for being an active, the carriers of the social change. So basically, if you fight for the position of the school librarian in elementary and secondary education and enabling him or her to do their job, this is something which is important. Usually librarians are the third-class citizens in the school. Yeah, because the primary task is education, and barely teachers are understanding that the library is a place of education. It's a central, it's a core of every school should be a library, not the teacher. Teacher is just a guide, but library is a central place for learning. So basically, changing the paradigm in laws on education through the activism, the civil activism within the library associations, this is the way. So the library associations should include dialogue with NGOs who are really fighting for the better society. Yeah, so we have to learn from them a lot, and sometimes we are not connected in a way. So the library associations, with cooperation with NGOs who are really doing the stuff on the ground, on the grassroots level, can really support library associations to be active in dialogue with the parliaments and with the local authorities. This is what I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Madacki, for your presentation and for your answers.